Cybercrime.
Hacking!
I am CouchScoop and I review single player and local co-op split screen video games. A couple of years ago I put together an extensive list about games that aren't Cyberpunk 2077 but adhere to the Cyberpunk genre. There's quite a few of them. It ended up being a two-part and I totally enjoyed digging and looking at some of these excellent games. This is 1994's Death Machine playing in the background here. It's got Brad Dourif in it, the voice of Chucky. The guy was in Dune, he was even in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's a film that sits on YouTube and it's one of these brilliantly tropey portrayals of 90s hacker characters. We don't have to go further for cringe than the actual film Hackers with Angelina Jolie and Sick Boy from Trainspotting. This one nails it. There's also the sort of apparatus dynamic. That's that chick from Starship Troopers who gets them out. In the film Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves, prior to him going anywhere near the Matrix, this is very much miming with the power gloves on and sort of using real augmented space in front of you to sort of hack the mainframe. Again, another spectacular direction only really found in 90s Cyberpunk film. Why are you even telling us any of this? You know, 40% of the people looking for that Deus Ex review have cleared off. Well, I didn't include it in that original Cyberpunk list, and I got quite a lot of comments saying, I cannot believe you've put this together without experiencing that game, and I played that original in 2000 and loved it. There's two modern Square Enix Deus Ex kind of remake games, and that is Mankind Divided and Human Revolution. Mankind Divided being the latter, 2016, and it is just landed on the Epic Store for absolutely nothing. All you need to do is just create an account. Because of its age also, I get to run it at some decent settings, and it's been a long time, 20 years plus since I looked at the series and what Square Enix has essentially done to that original gameplay model, and I am and aren't happy with it. But it is a spectacular Cyberpunk title, and I will say thank you to everybody that suggested it.
Game over.
Task Force Actual. This is Knife Leader. Engage Hush drives and descend to Angels 1-5.
Setting it in a derelict Dubai was a bold move. I'm pretty sure the municipality aren't big fans of that. We had that in Spec Ops The Line also, but it's a pretty cool intro and it does feel quite empowering taking control of this character. There's a massive homage to that original facial design with those sunglasses. There is still a little bit of late 90s fash in there. One of the original selling points for that game back in the year 2000 was it was all about choice and taking different directions and approaching situations with different solutions depending on your gameplay style. That was a big move back then in game development, and I don't think stuff like Bioshock or even some of the modern role-playing games, Mass Effect, etc., would be around if it wasn't for that original Deus Ex. I'm pretty sure I played Invisible War as well. It's quite fuzzy trying to separate those two games in hindsight.
I hate this city. Come on.
This game slaps you down for the first sort of set of main missions in a futuristic Prague, and it's a very cool blend of European aesthetic. I am reminded hugely, and I don't know whether this is deliberate, of the Half-Life 2 intro with this blend of old and new, the cobbled streets, still having that original architecture, but then a sprinkling of sci-fi and tech everywhere. It's pretty cool vibe. This game also defaulted straight to Ultra because of its 2016 year. We don't see any sort of major modern tech ray tracing, but it still pops. A very pretty game. We do have our frame rates in the top right. It's stuck to 60 as much as possible, and I am running this at 1080, and forgive the pans, but this is reminiscent of that police car from Blade Runner 1, that checkered design, that police motif and the flashing lights. This feels to me like a definite nod to those original old school 80s designs. The very mantra of Cyberpunk is high-tech, low-life, and this sort of straddles that quite well. There is a bit of vice, things aren't as dirty as they should be. It is a quite sterile feeling environment, but that's only really at the front end when you're in some of these more contemporary settings. And there is quite a lot of interaction with the police robots and force around. You are not left to your own devices.
Radíme všem občanům, aby se vyhýbali přelidněným prostranstvím a pokud možno nevycházeli z domu.
As suspected, however, the further you delve into this single-player content, the more dilapidated environments you're exposed to. There is a full-blown working railway metro station. CDPR fanboys. You're a CDPR fanboy, kid. Let's talk about what makes this a Deus Ex game and the choices and how they sort of mapped out your mission structure. It is a bit deceivingly, I'm open world, but really you've got to stick to my script sort of vibe. Which is okay because you're sort of plugged into these mini arenas that do involve a hell of a lot of stealth, and you have to lean on a lot of your augments, so the Cyberpunk is strong here. It's just not the same vast amount of choice that you were given in some of the earlier titles. But this is really, I think, to give that campaign some solid structure, and they're trying to push quite a detailed and character-driven story. There's loads of people that you meet, there's a huge hub complex, but as with that original, the most memorable thing about it is some of the AI and watching what they get up to, how they deal with problems and situations. Observation is a huge aspect of those early Deus Ex games. That brings me over to this game's base level first-person shooting gameplay and mechanics. This may be a sign of the times and its competitors that were around back in 2016, but this feels like this first-person shooting is kind of the show seller as opposed to a lot of the augments or what's going on within story and mission structure. But it's top-notch and very much surprised me with its high-end physics, beautiful interiors, and just dealing with quite a lot of different enemy types and having access to a lot of cool weaponry very early on. And that brings me over to its Splinter Cell-like cover system, which you will fall in and out with. It's got a suggestion at the start of the single player content that you might want to go to some of the modernized versions of the controls. I sat on original, traditional, and you have to click in a stick to get cover. It's all very different. You go for sprint constantly, and that is on the stick that puts you against a wall, so things can get quite hectic unintentionally. Even quick cycling your weapons is a 2-button process, and to bring up that wheel you have to click in one of the analog sticks. It doesn't feel too natural, but I wanted to play this game as the developers intended and how it was approached to its audience back then in 2016. A bit like Metal Gear, you're not supposed to set every alarm off and blow up every fire extinguisher and shoot every soldier face to face. The incentive is to creep around, and there's even mission reward on an XP front for not triggering anything. So you do lean on that initial stealth, but it still is really cool to see it when stuff kicks off, and the game does handle it. Frame rates kind of stuck with me. I suppose what I'm trying to say with all this is that the first person shooting action is so damn good that it's very tempting to just let everything go pear-shaped because you want to see these cool guns in action and also try out all that alternative ammunition. You get electricity bullets, tranquilizers, it's coming out of your ears, and you run out of space in that tiny attaché trunk you're given almost immediately. I do love some of this atomic heart art that we see over here with the pills coming out of the mouth. This is some cool architectural design.
But still we have no answers. No one has yet claimed responsibility. Dr. Talos Rucker, the leader of ARC, posted a letter condemning the attack.
So after Prague, you're kind of whisked away to a city called Golem, and that's where things do get gritty and dirtier. You're very at home with the atmosphere that they put towards you in this next stage of the game. I was completely like, yes, this is what I was waiting for.
I don't like to stop being here. What's their code? Clank.
Some of those films brought up at the start of the video, The Lawnmower Man and Johnny Mnemonic, some of the graphics when they, cut to CGI. I was having them on in the background whilst playing this and just thinking, damn, I'm lucky to see such a leap in graphical fidelity, that these games just look better than films did back then. It's very spectacular. And to think that it's 2016 and the daddy of Cyberpunk games is out and about, Cyberpunk 2077, I was not deterred by what I saw. I was a little bit annoyed how linear the game actually is, but 2077 is an open world game. This doesn't pitch open world at any stage in its synopsis. It's just that you're very hemmed in on certain sections, and there is really only a handful of solutions to go to get past the particular stages. Some of this, I think, is me not knowing every solution available to me that could make me go down a singular route, get in the fight with the enemies, don't bother avoiding, don't look for the vents or go through all the laptops and start the inevitable
hacking.
To strengthen their justification. I know it is right to lay down in front of our
Access granted.
Game over.
The hacking minigame is pretty cool. It's like a miniature RTS. We've got to fortify certain nodes to stop the worm getting through, to sort of alert the main nucleus. It's a weird thing. It made a lot of sense in 2016, I imagine.
Jensen, it's Vaclav. I just got the box from Otar.
I did want to cover some of the augment and special moves and how the game pushes a sort of toggle on, toggle off power meter. A little bit like the Surge 2, you've got a figure you work with and you can pull stuff out and put stuff in, change a lot up depending on what you're dealing with, and you can do all of that in real time. The more formidable your enemies get, the more you'll have to lean on a lot of the augment techniques, and some of them are completely badass, including a grenade that just spreads 360 degrees around you, and you can also just go Crisis style invisible and really start enjoying some deep stealth gameplay with the particular targeted loadouts or builds. Is this a good cyberpunk genre game? Totally. It's really strong, and I'm so impressed with what I've seen this long after its launch, and I want to just say a big shout out to all Patreons and subscribers for saying you've got to get this under your belt if you're into cyberpunk and futuristic sci-fi first-person shooters. Does it feel like a Deus Ex game? I don't know, and with its modernization, obviously they had to give it a sort of different angle or something completely accessible for the greater market. What with it being Square Enix and full AAA, I think we may have lost a little bit of that open world and vast decision making. This feels a little bit like Prey, and the environment also being so cyberpunk and focused in that direction is not a bad thing. That game model is spectacular.
I'm running out for you!
But for free, and even if you've got a semi-decent PC and you like your sci-fi or first-person single-player content like this, then this is a great decision to make and so worth going back to. I think even if you played it way back when, because there's been a lot of water under the bridge, these weapons are very cool, and the whole system and idea and story does have some slants in direction depending on how you communicate with people. So I'm going to leave it there. I have been Couch Coop, and I will see you down there.
Job, do you like to play games?
Yeah.
Game over.